Today's morning coffee vinyl side, the Alan Parsons Project, Tales of Mystery and Imagination, Edgar Allan Poe, 1976. Recording engineer and producer Alan Parsons got his start in music working at EMI's Abbey Road studios as an assistant engineer working on the Beatles' Get Back sessions, and received his first engineering credit for their album Abbey Road. He went on to have an ambitious career as an engineer and producer, most famously as the engineer for Pink Floyd's The Dark Side of the Moon, and the producer for the Scottish band Pilot, as well as Ambrosia and the Hollies. Declining the offer to work on Pink Floyd's Dark Side of the Moon follow-up, Wish You Were Here, for a musical project he was working on with fellow Abbey Road alum Eric Wolfson, the pair would release Tales of Mystery and Imagination, Edgar Allan Poe, as co-creators under the banner of the Alan Parsons Project, considered one of prog rock's most interesting concept albums. I was unaware until I put this album on that it was this album, thinking instead it was just an audio reading of selected Poe poetry and prose. Our process on Morning Coffee Vinyl Side is to do as little preparation as possible before we spin an album with our daily morning coffee, so we can capture our raw reactions in real time and feed off the energy of the ticking clock that's calling us to post before we get on with the day. I just didn't see the Alan Parsons Project byline on the cover, as it had been obscured by wear. Now, I've always been a literature and poetry guy, but Poe was never someone I developed a specific taste for like some do. As a kid, I associated Poe with Vincent Price movies, and camp wasn't really my thing. I was more into gritty realism. I preferred my macabre and gothic horror without the wink. That said, this album is fantastic. There are a couple of standalone songs that work as singles here, including The Raven and The System of Dr. Tar and Professor Feather. But this album deserves to be played and heard in its entirety. It's similar to Dark Side of the Moon in that regard, as there are interwoven musical themes and idioms that connect the musical selections. I love being surprised, and this album surprised and inspired me. In this way, it absolutely delivers on the promise of its title, Tales of Mystery and Imagination. I'm inspired to dig deeper into the Alan Parsons Project here, but for sure also Poe. Now, critically, this album was successful. It was the first of 11 albums under the project byline, though some criticized it for not being aesthetically Poe enough. Now, that's exactly what interests me, the aesthetic of the music, offering up its own poetic through which to reimagine the works of Poe. That's the magic and the point here. It's an entirely new perspective. I want fractals, not reproductions, and this is a musical fractal, and I love it.